So Paul never sits still. When he's not writing books, he's speaking at conferences. When he gets a break from writing and speaking, he organizes his own conference. During all of this, he's constantly working to help underrepresented people in our community. He's fueled by coffee, and he's an inspiration to us all. But enough about you, Paul. Tell us about your dog.
I have two dogs, and this one here is Aria, and she's the hungriest dog in the world right now. She loves treats, and she's a Samoyed. They're both Samoyeds, but this is a particularly large, wolfy Samoyed, this one. Once she was out running in the local arboretum and bit through her tongue in the excitement.
Oh my gosh.
And people thought she'd like consumed a whole rabbit because she had red on her face, like an evil, vicious dog bearing down.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
actually a really soft, gentle little thing who looks quite wolfy and has a bit of a bark. There we go.
Well, she seems to be going through those treats pretty quickly.
That is her specialty, yeah. Anything she can find, literally anything she can find, she will chew her way through.
Well, so long as she constrains herself to food items.
Yeah, she tries Lego, but fortunately we're fast on the pipe for that one.
Nice. Yeah, I had a friend whose bulldog used to eat his shoes. And that was a real pain.
It gets expensive very quickly. It's always like one shoe. And never like pairs. They eat a bit of one shoe, you know?
Well, you know, they've had a bit of a taste and they've lost the taste for it after one shoe.
Exactly. Correct. They had the best bit.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you're talking about at UIKonf?
Yeah, so it's a question that folks often ask me, you know, how did I learn Swift? And they say things like, you know, how did you master Swift? And the talk is really about who can really say they've mastered Swift. And the answer is not many people.
Right.
Partly because it's a very big language these days, a lot to it. It's some interesting complexities in there and so forth. Partly because the framework's always evolving, but also because Swift itself is changing constantly. You know, Swift 5.2 is only a month old as we record this. It's not a massive release, but there are new features in there and so forth. But 5.1, which was June last year, was announced. Right, was a huge release. Swift 5.0 was a huge release. 4.2 was a huge release. 4.1, 4.0, all huge releases. So who can say they've mastered Swift, or even say they've learned Swift? That's the sort of the crux of the talk right there.
Yeah, there's so much of the little fiddly bits that I know I don't know. I consider myself to be brand new to the language, right? I only really started working with it last summer. And I'm constantly being amazed at the strange and obscure things that you can do that are both wonderful and terrifying.
Yeah. And you have thought, you know, Swift 3, let's change everything, let's break everything, let's make it all new again, or Swifty. Would it have stopped then? And, you know, a reasonable person might have said, yes, that's it. It's evolved now into what Swift ought to be, the one true Swift. And then, of course, Swift 4 introduced some major features, like we had codable support and similar. And 4.2 was a particular favorite of mine. Introduced things like the random API and things like that. There's great features in there. And you think, okay, fine, we've done that. And then 4.2 has finally got it fixed. And then, of course, 5.0 introduces result types and similar. And then 5.1 introduces property wrappers. And it's always changing, always evolving. And is it going to stop? Can it stop? Should it stop? I don't even know if it should stop. But at this point, it's looking like it's not going to stop. Swift 6 is already on the cards, right? With that Ted Krimenek road to Swift 6 post.
Are there any things from the 6.0 time frame that you're keen to?
So I don't know, because I spent a long time working in the open source community before coming to Apple platforms, and there's a curse with Perl 6. You know, Perl 6 was a real problem area. It took a long time to get that thing working. Had a series of apocalypses, they called them, big writings to try and define what the language might look like. And it was problematic. It took a long time. It finally shipped fine. But We also had Python. Python 3 was called Python 3000 for a long time.
Right.
It was like a very, very long away release. It was like Python 2 to Python 3000 is a very long jump.
Mhm.
So, and they'd push features there saying, oh, we don't want to do this in Python 2. Let's push it to Python 3000. Like, we want to do it, but just not yet. And I don't know yet to what extent Swift 6 is going to be Swift 6000. Like, just keep on punting things until we're ready to say, yes, that's finally good enough for Swift 6. I don't really know.
Interesting. So what do you hope the audience will take away from your talk?
I hope a little bit of appreciation for what it's like for someone coming new to Swift. And that doesn't necessarily mean new to programming, because lots of folks still use Objective-C.
Right.
And, they are, in some respects, seeing their opportunities continue to shrink because there's not many new Objective-C program opportunities going right now. And they're thinking, okay, I should move to Swift. And they're going to Swift as if it was the first version. Swift 5.2 was the first Swift, right? That's what they're seeing. So that is a different experience than I had coming to Swift 1.0 when it was Objective-C, basically, without the pointers and with generics, like little changes. Even the method names were the same back then, right? And if you jumped on Swift 1 or Swift 2, fine, it's fairly easy. Swift 3 was harder because it's all Swiftified and so forth. But now it's increasingly different. It's its own unique language at this point. And as a result, I don't think folks who learned it like me in the early days of Swift 1 or even before one, the original dub beta launched, can fully appreciate what it's like coming to this language for the first time and jumping in at Swift 6 potentially, and like, whoa, where do I start? Is it result? Is it try? Is it guard? Is it defer? Is it?
Yeah.
So I hope a little bit of appreciation for that.
Interesting. Yeah, I know it was really challenging to pick it up last summer because there's so much there.
There is. There really is.
And you don't quite get a grasp for exactly why things are the way they are due to the evolution of the language. They just seem to be the mystical way that things have been handed down, and it can be definitely very challenging. So
it can, but only partly because it's also multiple ways to solve the same problem. Like, let's grab this dog for a second. There we go. You can't bark now, can you? Right. So if you were doing C++, or you're doing C, or you're doing many, many other languages, they said, hey, what paradigm do you use? You might say, well, I do OOP, for example. And Swift has OOP. It's a great OOP. But we also have protocol-oriented programming. And you wouldn't find that in C, for example, or C++ necessarily. We have functional programming. Lots of that. Come from Haskell, you go, yeah, functional programming. But what about the protocol stuff? What about the OOP stuff? We've got a mix of everything. And that means you can solve the same problem in multiple ways. Easily 3 this there, if not 4 or even 5 different ways in Swift. So yes, you've got to learn different language features. How does call-as function work, for example? How does protocol inheritance work, for example, or composition? How does that work? Then you've got to build up of that and say, well, okay, I now get the language features. Which one of these do I choose to crack this particular nut? Which of these many hammers do I have is right for this single nail I want to try and just whack into this bit of wood? And that's hard. So there's many complexities around learning, I think, in Swift.
And as a still basically young language, there are still, as I understand it, and not being a language nerd, my understanding is there's still issues with completeness, right? There are still ways that the language needs to evolve to solve all of those corner cases, and maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't, and maybe that's in the Swift 6 timeline.
Maybe. I think Swift is very, very good at epitomizing the job/Picasso idea that great artists steal. They thieve ideas, they feed implementations from all sorts of other languages. I
Mhm.
think it was Greg Ho, I think, from the Apple Photos team, who said that actually the alternatives considered section from a proposal was the most interesting part of the proposal, because it's like, and here how to do it in Rust, here's how you do it in Ruby or Python or PHP or other languages, and you can look at that and go, that is interesting. Oh, cool, that's neat.
Yeah.
See what they did well, see what they kind of sucked at, didn't work out well, or clashed later on without them realizing, and rip them off mercilessly. And it works brilliantly.
Yep.
Yes, we had the sort of idea of a Swift as a multi-headed Hydra where you can solve it as OOP or POP or da-da-da-da-da-da. But it's still the case that they've had a chance to look at, raw strings in Python and say, this is good here, it's bad here. How can we improve? And that's an amazing place to be.
Yeah. So will your dogs be co-presenters during your talk?
This one is very talkative.
Yeah.
She clearly wants to be involved somehow, don't you? You know what I mean? To talk. I'll see what I can do. It's always difficult with working with kids and animals, as they say in the acting world. So I'll see what they do. They're certainly present on the live streams a heck of a lot. When I do a Swift or SwiftUI live stream, this one loves live streams, which is part of the fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Paul. It's been a real treat talking to you. I mean, we don't get to see each other as often as I'd like, so I guess video is going to have to do it for now. But I'm looking forward to your talk, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. It's been a pleasure, my pleasure entirely. I would say to folks, I hope you all enjoy the conference. UIKonf are trying very, very hard to forge ahead and see what a online conference could look like in a world where right now we don't really know. We're all figuring it out as we go along. So folks like me and the other presenters, there's some great speakers this time, are working extremely hard to give you the best we can. So I hope you come along. I hope you meet some folks virtually, admittedly. I hope you have a lot of fun. And of course, I hope you learn something new about Swift. Take care, folks.